All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to be going over how the U.S. got involved into World War One. Okay. Now, this again, it at first we're going to go with something that happened some years before, and then it's going to play a role. Okay, so be patient with me because I had some students in previous years like telling me, "Well, why are we learning about this? What's this got to do with World War One?" I'm like, patience, just wait, because there is a purpose, there is a connection. Okay, so let's go over the objective. We're going to analyze the significance of America's involvement in Mexico. We're going to examine the importance of the Germans sinking passenger ships, and we're going to create an argument of whether Mexico would have accepted the terms of the Zimmerman telegram if the message wasn't intercepted. So here is your warm-up picture. Okay, now I'm don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but the Romans back in the day realized that if you got two pieces, right, of like stone, and you just like let them fall, right, if that middle piece called the keystone, if that is big enough and strong enough, a bridge can be formed and people can walk on it without those stones being connected with like concrete or in anything really. It uses a force of gravity and it puts pressure on that keystone. So that middle piece is truly important to where it can hold a bridge and where people can walk and cross through. Okay. But as you can see in this picture, the keystone is missing. Okay. So the first question asks you, what is happening here? What's going on? Okay. So look at the picture, look what's being written on those stones, and look who's there, things like that. Look at their reaction. And the second one is, what do you think this artist is trying to say about the relations between the U.S. and these other countries? Is it important? Why is it significance? Things like that. Okay, so analyze the picture, go through that. Okay, go ahead and pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, April 1914. Some American soldiers, they go into Mexico, and particularly this one town called Tampico, and they, get drunk. They're causing a ruckus. They're being obnoxious and loud and things like that. So the Mexican police arrest them, for being drunk and disorderly. They release them the next day, after they've had, they slept it off, they're having a hangover. It's like, okay, now you can go. So finally, the American soldiers make it back to America, and the commander's like, where were you guys at? And they're like, oh, we got arrested in Mexico, And the commander is basically telling Mexico, hey, you guys arrested our soldiers. You had no right to do that. And they're like, yeah, they were in this town being drunk and being a nuisance. And the commander basically said, well, you know what? You owe my men an apology. And the Mexican police are like, we're not apologizing. They're the ones who did the wrong. I don't care where they're from. They did wrong. They were drunk. They were just being disorderly, being a nuisance. So we did what we would do with anybody else. We put them in jail. So they never got that apology. Now, this was kind of a little thing that Wilson kind of wanted. This gave him an opportunity to overthrow the Mexican president, whose last name was Huerta. Okay, so they were able to oust him, and they were able to put in a person that they wanted, and his last name was Carranza. Okay, and Carranza basically took over Mexico with the help of the U.S. supplying him weapons and things like that. Many Mexican citizens were very, very upset because, for one, they didn't want him there. They knew he was a puppet for the United States. They knew that he would listen to Woodrow Wilson more than he would listen to them. So when he became president of Mexico, there was a lot of people who said, we don't like this guy. So Mexican forces opposed Carranza, and they would hope they would conduct raids in the U.S., hoping that the president would intervene, be like, you know what, hey Carranza, you're not doing your job. I'm getting you out of here. That's what they kind of wanted. So they're trying to antagonize the U.S. so that he would, turn his back on Carranza and take him out, or not even help him, so that the Mexican forces could get rid of him. One of those people was Pancho Villa, that's him right there in that picture right there. Pancho Villa came to America and burned the town of Columbus, New Mexico. Okay. Now, the thing is, yes, there were some Americans who were killed. Okay. And the thing is, the newspaper, especially the yellow journalism newspapers, really took this anthill and made it into a mountain. They took the small thing and made it huge. They were saying stuff like, oh, an invasion happened. These Mexican bandits came in and tried to take over this town, and they burned and they killed hundreds and thousands of American people. No, it was only like anywhere from 4 to 8, somewhere around there. It wasn't the hundreds and thousands as some newspapers had tried to claim. Try to ruffle the feathers of American citizens, because again, they wanted to sell newspapers. So President Wilson sent 6,000 soldiers into Mexico to get Villa. They never did. They never got close to him. As my great great-grandpa said, the closest they ever got to Villa, the U.S. soldiers and the Mexican Federale soldiers, was the dust being kicked up from the last man. The horse, they trot, they kick up dirt. The dirt coming off that horse, that was the closest they ever got to him. And my great-grandpa would know, because he was recruited by the Mexican government at the age of like 14. They basically took him, trained him, and told him, you're going to check into caves and look for Pancho Villa. So he was during this time. And he has some stories about this. Now, why is that going to play a role? You'll find out in a little bit. Okay. Now, World War I erupts. Archduke Ferdinand is killed and assassinated by this Slavic nationalist group called the Black Hand. Okay, he's killed in Sarajevo. And this causes Austria-Hungary to team up with Germany. The Slavic countries basically team up with Russia and France and Britain. And Europe is being separated in two. When asked by the reporters and people like that, asking Woodrow Wilson, what are we going to do? Who are we going to go with? He's like, neither. That's their fight. That's not our fight. We're going to be neutral. We're not going to pick a side. But there were some Americans who said, we should pick a side. We need to. Okay? One group were the German Americans. There are about 8 million of them. They said, we should support the homeland, the German homeland, And then there were about 4.5 million Irish Americans who said, you know what? Britain's always getting their nose into other people's business like they do with us, in Ireland. Britain's an evil country. So, yeah, the United States should join the Central Powers. They should join that side, Germany and Austria-Hungary and stuff like that. However, there were some other Americans, the other, side of Americans, who felt that we should go to war, but we should side with England. They basically felt, hey, we have a bond with England. We get along with them. They're our friends, And then there were some people who looked at America's history and said, you know what? You know who we owe a lot to and we haven't paid them back yet, really, is France. When we were fighting the English for our independence, who had our back? France did. They gave us money, they gave us soldiers, things like that. And when they asked for our help against England, we turned our backs on them. This is our time to help them out. So we should join the English, French, side. Okay. Now, propaganda posters started to really pop up. These were posters that were created to try to sway people to think a certain way. So like a picture right here, loose lips sink ships. So in other words, if you flap your mouth about, hey, did you know the U.S. is making a new ship? Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm doing this and that. And then some spies might overhear and try to destroy that ship. Like, oh, hey, yeah, there's a passenger ship going to England. It's taking ammunition, guns, things like that. It's leaving the dock, tomorrow at 8. Some spy might hear that, relay the message, and destroy that ship. Things like that. So in other words, they're saying, keep your mouth closed. Now, both sides use this. Central powers and the Allies. They use propaganda posters. The German propaganda posters really aimed at Russians, making them look horrible and evil. Like, they would show them like about to kill a mother and her child, just holding the child and scared, They would show them just like as barbarians, destroying towns, burning them, things like that. British propaganda posters were very skilled. They like there's one that says, your country needs you. In most propaganda posters by the U.S., it says like, your country needs you. Join the U.S. Army, join the Navy, join. They're telling you where you should go. Whereas that one poster doesn't say where you should go. It says your country needs you. Well, how? There's different ways, multiple ways. Find out. How can you help your country? So they use a lot of psychological stuff on their stuff. The other thing that was happening that was swaying people's minds were stories, false rumors. One of the biggest ones that I'm looking back, it's like, really, people believe this? Was this thing called the German U-boats. They are basically submarines, and that they were attacking ships. And the stories are that when the ships went down, the dead bodies would float up, and that the Germans would gather the bodies, send them back to Germany, and put the bodies on their gardens, as fertilizer. So their flowers and their crops can grow nice and pretty. It's like, wow, really? They telling me that they would gather bodies, send them back to Germany, and just lay up just a dead body. It's probably all smelling decayed already. Put it on a garden. Wow. The other one that makes me laugh is that the Germans take those bodies and they make soap out of them. Yeah, it's true. If you don't believe me, look it up. Google it. People actually believe that. Like a German person be like, man, this guy Ted smells great. Hoo-wee. Man, I gotta get another one like him because, man, he smells amazing. No, but again, this did help some Americans, lean more towards this way. Now, were they complete idiots and believed it? No, but again, those who hated Germany, they were quick to believe the stories. Oh yeah, they would do stuff like that. Oh, they're so horrible, things like that. So think about, if you don't believe me, think about somebody you don't like, and so if someone told you a rumor about them, that if it was anybody else, you'd be like, no way. But if it's somebody you hate, you'd be like, you know what, that's probably true. Yeah, probably true. They would do something like that. Because already you have that hatred, you have that anger towards that person. So you hear a rumor, you're going to believe it because you already have that anger towards them, that hatred. All right, so here's your first question. What do you think worked better, the propaganda posters or the false rumors? Okay, do you think more of the visual or more of the hearing? What do you think swayed people to think a certain way? What do you think? And why do you believe this? So again, the writing prompts on the bottom. I believe the posters or rumors work better because, and explain. What do you personally believe? Okay, so Write the response, pause the video, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So America was actually loaning money to both sides, the Central Powers and the Allies. Problem was, however, they put a limit on how much money they were loaning to, like Germany. Okay, they're like, hey man, we gave you so much money, we can't loan you anymore because you're not paying us back, so we can't. When Britain and France would ask for money, they'd be like, oh no, sorry, you haven't paid us back. We've loaned you too much. We're sorry. But secretly be like, here, have some money. How much you need? Okay, we got you. They would secretly give them money, but publicly they'd be like, oh no, we can't give you money either. You haven't paid us back yet. Things like that. In the North Sea, Britain created a blockade around Germany to stop supplies from going in. So things like gun, ammunition, food, things like that. They stopped them. Okay? They seized all that contraband going into Germany. Now, Germany knew that the Allies depended on food, equipment, and other supplies from the U.S. Okay, because again, England is an island, right? France is basically being destroyed with the war going on. Right, so they're like, yeah, these guys are going to run out of food, and they need this equipment and food from America. So February 1915, Germany announced, hey, we're going to sink any ship going near Britain. We're going to sink you. No warning. This is your warning right here, what we're telling you right now. This is your warning. Now, May 7th, 1915, a German U-boat sank the British passenger liner Lusitania. Nearly 1,200 people died, including 128 Americans were killed. This caused a lot of anger, and some people say, well, how come nobody jumped off, this boat and things like that? It's like almost the same number as Titanic, The thing is, the ship, as you see in this picture above, it sank pretty quick. It did sink pretty quick. And people were wondering why, did the torpedo just make a really good hit, explosion, and destroy the side? The Germans claimed that, hey, the Allies had weapons and gunpowder and things like that in that ship. The Allies and the Americans were like, no, there was no guns or ammunition or anything like that there. And it wouldn't be for another 70 years, 80 years, something like that it would be confirmed that, yeah, there was ammunition. There was stuff in there. The government lied back then, saying, oh, no, there's no guns, there's no ammunition, there's nothing. But in reality, there were. There really was. On March 1916, a German U-boat sank a French passenger ship called the Suez, and it injured several Americans. Now, that's the actual picture of it at the bottom. It didn't sink it, but it destroyed a good chunk of it, and it was able to limp into the next harbor. Okay. Problem is, with these two passenger ships sinking and attacked by German U-boats, the wave of Americans saying we should go to war against Germany started leaning more and more towards this way. Germany didn't want that. So what they did is they said, okay, how about this? We'll sign this document called the Suez Pledge, in that we will no longer attack passenger ships without warning. We'll pop up, we'll say, hey, we're here. Either you turn around or we inspect the ship, making sure that there's no weapons, things like that on there, no food going to Britain, or France. Okay. Now, the next election came up in the United States in 1916. Woodrow Wilson won by stating he was a peace candidate. He's like, yeah, see, the war is going on over there, and we haven't gone yet. Because why? I want peace. We shouldn't be involved. I'm the greatest. He also pointed out, hey, we didn't send any troops over. See, we're keeping out of this war. That's not our war. But in January 1917, a German official named Arthur Zimmerman cabled the German ambassador in Mexico. This is the message right there, as you see in the paper. That's the message. It's sent in code. And it was basically told, hey, give this offer to the Mexican government. And here's what the offer said. If the U.S. did join the war and win against Germany, Germany would say, then tells Mexico, ally yourself with us, and then we will help you regain your lost land, which is California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, Colorado, places like that. Like, we will help you get that land back if you side with us and you attack the United States too. Then we will help you get back that lost land. This is known as the Zimmerman telegram, and this ticked off a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans. Because they're like, wait, these guys are trying to secretly make this deal with Mexico, telling them that if we joined, they were going to help them take back this land. Wow, okay. So once that became news on February 1st, 1917, Germany said, you know what? We're going back to the old ways. We're going to attack every ship that comes by. We don't care. Now, why did Germany do this? Because two things. One, they believed they were really close to starving out Britain and France. They were like, we're going to starve them out. They're on the break. They're about to starve. They haven't gotten food for a long time. They're almost out of ammunition, things like that. They don't have the tools they need. We almost have this. And the other thing is, we've destroyed the Lusitania. We destroyed the Suez. We did this telegram, and the U.S. still hasn't joined. They're not going to join. We could basically spit in their face and slap their mom, and they're not going to do anything. So, might as well go back to sinking these ships. And that's what happens. Between February 3rd and March 21st of 1917, they destroy 6 American ships without warning. Well, now Wilson is upset. Now Wilson's like, you know what? Forget this. On April 2nd, 1917, he calls for a special session of Congress and asks for a declaration of war against Germany, and he gets it. Now, here's your next question. Do you think a president should still keep their campaign promises even when something occurs that might make them change their position? So in this case, Woodrow Wilson said, oh, we're not going to war, and then all this other stuff happens. Should he be allowed to change his position, or should, hey, you made that promise, you keep that promise? What do you think? Should they, and again, not just Wilson, but all presidents, when they say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, and then something happens and they're like, well, I have to go against what I promised. Should they be allowed to go against what they promised because, hey, this thing occurred? Or should they be like, hey, no, you made that promise, you keep that promise. We don't care if something happened. You said this, you keep your word. What do you think? Even if we got attacked and things like that, what do you think? All right, so pause the video, write your response, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so 2 million men volunteered to fight for the U.S. The thing was, there were some people who said, yeah, 2 million, it's not that much. Now, to you and me, it may sound like a lot, but if you really think about the scope of Europe, if you look at this map, between those red lines, those are battles that are happening and stuff like that. So that's a large area, and 2 million people is not going to be much. So they felt a draft was needed to get more people. 400,000 African Americans were drafted, but only about 42,000 actually saw combat. Okay. Thing is, those soldiers who went and fought, they were still separated, segregated from the white soldiers, and they had white officers. Same thing like what happened during the Civil War. Excuse me, with the 54th Massachusetts. Now, trench warfare ripped through France and all along the Russian-Romanian border. So again, if you look at that map, you'll see where it says Eastern Front. And if you look to where France is, you'll see a line, a red line. And where Italy is, you'll see another red line. If you notice, there's no red line going through Switzerland, because Switzerland is a neutral country. They're like, you guys fight. We're not involved in this. That's like the only place in the world, honestly, if there were nuclear bombs, if every country was bombing each other, they'd be the only people going like, what is that noise? You know, because they're surrounded by huge mountains. You know, they're pretty well protected, you know. So if ever World War III pops off and nuclear bombs are being exploding everywhere, you may want to get on a plane and go to Switzerland. Okay. Soldiers from both sides created trenches. Okay, so if you've never seen a trench, go to where there's a canal where water goes through and some of that. If you look in, that's basically how a trench kind of looked like. Maybe not as wide, you know, but deep, yeah. You know, it should be enough for where you bend your knees a little, it cover your head. And basically they drew a line in the sand and they were pointing their guns at each other. And if someone put their head up, they start shooting. You know, someone tried to run through that area between the trenches, they'd get shot. And that's why that area became known as no man's land. Because one side's here, and that space in the middle, you know, that was nobody. And they would bomb each side. As one side charged, they would just bomb them. And then when these guys retreated, these guys would try to attack, and then they would bomb them. And nobody, that land in between belonged to nobody. It was bombed, it was burned, there's dead bodies everywhere and stuff like that, which we're going to talk about next week. So that's why it was known as no man's land. Okay. So like I said, it's a flat area. Everything's burned, no cover whatsoever. If you saw one of your friends was out there in no man's land, let's say 50 yards, you know, about half a football field, and they need your help to get them to safety, would you go? Now, the thing is, you have to remember, it's not just a straight run. There's barbed wire in the way, you know, and things like that. And again, the ground is not, you know, completely flat so where you can run. There's bomb holes here and there. There's divots. You know, there's dead bodies and things like that. So it's not just a straight shot. There's things in your way. Would you go help your friend? They're out there dying and calling for your help. What would you do? And tell me why. How far would you go for them? Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So here's your exit ticket question. Do you believe it was okay for the president and the U.S. government to keep the real reason why the German U-boat sank the Lusitania a secret from the public? Do you think it's okay that they lied? They said, oh no, we don't know why it sank so quickly. But in reality, they knew exactly why. And they denied it when the Germans said it. Do you think that was okay for them to keep that a secret back then? Why or why not? The other question is, if the Zimmerman telegram wasn't intercepted and the German ambassador gave the message to the Mexican government, do you think Mexico would have taken the offer? Why or why not? Justify your thinking. Tell me what you think, all right? Explain it. So once you finish that, that's it for this lesson. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something new. All right. So you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later.